The 90s Spider-Man show did so many things with so many different characters, especially villains, and story arcs over its run. It gave us some of the best villain depictions ever, like the Green Goblin, the Hobgoblin, thanks to Mark Hamill, Venom, the Black Suit, Tombstone, Kingpin, and even the freaking Wheel. Yeah, this guy. Yeah, you thought I wouldn't talk about this legend? You're right. I'm not going to talk about him, but I am going to talk about this guy, the Spot. The Spot actually got some dedicated time on this show that actually treated him like a real villain instead of just a joke, which you don't see a lot in the comics, except for Across the Spider-Verse. The Spot is one of the most underrated Spider-Man villains that almost does a thing, but then gets thrown to the back of the villain list or even killed whenever a new story comes out. Except, of course, for when he gets in a big movie like Across the Spider-Verse, but we're going to get to that. Did you know that his origin is actually a lot different in the comics? Of course, like many adaptations, you can't be exactly faithful to it, things don't translate to screen, or storylines can't support it. In his original origin from Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, Dr. Jonathan Ohnn, like Johnny on the Spot, that's the actual intention of the writer, a little tongue-in-cheek moment. He's a scientist with education from MIT and all that good stuff, but he works for the Kingpin. Kingpin in the comics was and is infamous for always having a super enforcer or some kind of souped-up assassin, especially Kingpin from this era. So as Kingpin's last enforcer, called the Answer, sacrifices himself to save Dagger because Kingpin needs her to heal his wife, Vanessa, Kingpin needs a new guy, basically. And in the aftermath of all that went down, the computers in the lab that Ohnn runs for the Kingpin, they had scanners running that captured the energy and radiation signatures of Cloak, who was using his powers during the altercation from before. So using that data, Ohnn runs an experiment trying to replicate Cloak's powers, and in doing so, creates what looks like a black hole. So he does what any curious scientist does, he walks right into the black hole, and he dies instantly because it's a black hole. No, he lives, he enters what later becomes known as the Spotted Dimension, a dimension full of all of these spots. Recognizing the cluster of spots by him as he entered the Spotted Dimension, he's able to exit the spot he came in, miraculously, and the spots all start to stick to him. With enough focus and strain, he's able to cluster the spots together and be somewhat not as conspicuous as a guy covered in spots. From there, he wants to prove that what he was able to make with these spots is actually viable for Kingpin to use. Better yet, maybe even strong enough power for him to be his own villain, a freelance spot-themed villain. But regardless, this new power needed to be tested against a real opponent to see if it's viable. And all of this is happening during a very chaotic period of Peter's life, while he's kind of dating Black Cat and they are trying to better each other. But Peter struggles with her amoral behavior and outlook, as he says all throughout these issues, like constantly. While Peter casually bumps into the new girls in his building over and over, while also trying to help Flash Thompson get through some midlife crisis stuff or quarter-life crisis stuff. But eventually, as all the other storylines are happening, Spot gets to test his powers against both Black Cat and Spider-Man. And he actually takes Peter out. I mean, drops him to his knees just from telling him his name. From there, he's able to toss individual spots and change their sizes, putting spots all over and countering Spider-Man's spider sense. But Spider-Man is Spider-Man after all. So eventually, Peter figures out how to defeat this initial instance of the Spot by basically ducking and weaving and realizing that he does eventually run out of spots, or at least can get enough spots off of him so that Peter is actually able to hit him where there aren't any spots anymore, forcing him to retreat, but intimidating him enough to rethink his villainous ways to where he regrets his existence. A punch from Spider-Man is pretty intense after all. Dr. Jonathan Ohnn existing in a panel, having a little ominous foreshadowing moment that he would become something, interactions with Kingpin, the experiment, all of that, and even the fight with Black Cat and Spider-Man all happen super quickly over like 3 issues where he's not even like the main focus the entire time. 3 or 4 or other storylines are all happening, culminating in the 100th issue with this final fight with Black Cat and Peter, and even a breakup happening for the two of them right after. And Spot wouldn't be seen again until he would be recruited for a very intense, very special team. A team so infamous you haven't ever heard of it, most likely. Dubbed the Legion of Losers? No, Yep, that's actually their name. But they're also known as the Spider-Man Revenge Squad. They are filled to the brim with A-list spider rogues, people you've seen in movies, in games, and everywhere, on lunchboxes like the Gibbon, Grizzly, Kangaroo, and Spot. Grizzly and Kangaroo are tired of getting thwarted by Spidey and tired of not having money. Kangaroo spends most of this little arc looking at the Sharper villain catalog, theorizing what he wants to do and be with new gadgets and tech. And Spot seems to be the only one with some kind of thinking power. All of this also happens right after the Chameleon has kidnapped Spider-Man, a doctor from Ravencroft, and I think Jameson's son or something. So in the middle of them running away with the money, they end up running into Spider-Man, knocking him out seemingly very easily. And while they're all back at the little Legion of Loser hideout, a disagreement of sorts starts to happen. Everybody's kind of disenfranchised with each other. They're all particular villains of low caliber, and a big brawl ensues, and the Spot is eventually countered by the mighty Gibbon, Kangaroo, and Grizzly. Gibbon and Grizzly think about giving the money back, and we find out Spider-Man was actually faking being unconscious the whole time, seeing everything, hearing everything, but Spidey agrees to go set it straight with the cops for them and take the money back, leaving Gibbon and Grizzly to think about being good guys for a change. And after another period of not a whole lot going on for Spot's storytelling begins to heat up a little bit. In one of the most interesting parts of his story, we drop into Tombstone getting tossed into prison, and who ends up being his cellmate, our favorite Dr. Ohnn, who teams up with Tombstone, helping the pair of them escape, only to start to dream up what could be and have his neck snapped by Tombstone. He survives that somehow. Now, we never get an explanation or a reason or even like magical potion or some kind of thing to explain how he comes back, but the Spot returns. He pops up in a bunch of background panels and does the lower level named villain thing for a bit. During a stint where Elektra is reviving some villains and killing villains to make soldiers with a hand or something, and Hydra is involved and Wolverine is there and all this crazy stuff's happening. I'm pretty sure Wolvie kills Spot. Don't quote me on it. But Spot is there in the middle of that. He's one of the villains implicated and has an issue. He basically dies again, revives, dies, and moving us on into the Spot's next team up, where he actually gets speaking lines and panel time. So MODOK, not that one, but the usual one, the comic one, is hatching a scheme, an ultimate heist. MODOK hatches a wild plan to steal the hypernova, a near infinite power source, recruits a team of villains to do so, and trains them to take on this heist. A lot of things happen, but Spot double crosses the team. He does so to take the hypernova to the Mandarin. He reached out to him via email because he kept the Kingpin's Rolodex when he left the Kingpin's employ, but the Mandarin is not pleased with the lack of honor displayed by the Spot. So he uses the black light ring to trap Spot in the spotted dimension with his money that he does pay him, which is sort of haunting and traumatizing, I guess, in its own way. MODOK goes on to have a whole thing chasing the Mandarin with the rest of the team to try to get the hypernova, only to reveal he actually manipulated the interaction between Puma and Spot to swap the hypernova that he gave him during the heist. So Spot technically sold a fake to the Mandarin the whole time. And MODOK had one of Spot's portals all scienced up for his own use to do all that and more. MODOK ends up blowing up his ex-girlfriend and gets some ransom money in the end and has a little happy ending for the floating head of evil that he is. Spot then returns in Amazing Spider-Man a year later or so, having gone kinda insane from being trapped in the spotted dimension. This is one of the best issues of the Spot, and I wish this was kind of like the building block for modern Spot, which we kind of see, but we kind of don't, and we kind of see flip-flopping on this. But anyways, Spot has to focus on his son and reuniting with him to break free from the dimension, having only been able to really sort of project his existence until then once in the bar with no name. He comes back to Earth and able to control his portals again, but without much of the same kind of humor that he had sort of been typecasted with as a lower level villain. He's functionally mute or just kind of driven insane and in his own little special place, but as he comes out of the portal, finally focusing on his son, he goes on the hunt for the Russian gangsters that he finds out put his son in a coma during a messed up drive-by that resulted in Wyatt Ohnn catching a few stray bullets. He starts by intimidating the gang slowly, marking them with black spots. Spider-Man stumbles upon the gang, only to find the gang getting murdered in the middle of an arms deal. After taking out everyone but the one guy in charge, Spot and Spider-Man do a little back and forth hot potato with a Russian gangster before Spider-Man tells him that he's not going to let him kill this guy. That's kind of his whole thing, most of the time. Spot leaves Spider-Man with his confession of sorts and a book for his son. The same book he used to read to him as a kid, Treasure Island. While the Russian gangster responsible for Spot's kid's coma goes insane in a padded cell, knowing Spot is everywhere and anywhere he wants to be. Which brings us to what was almost a perfect modern use of the Spot to bring him into a new tier of villainy, Mark Waid's Daredevil. It opens with a mob wedding, and someone has ordered a hit to happen during the wedding, which Daredevil thwarts, of course, saving the day, kissing the bride-to-be for some reason, and taking on our friendly neighborhood Portal villain. What doesn't often get talked about, though, is the later issues where Spot comes back to the story. Or so we think. See, it turns out that someone captured Spot and uses him like a human dimensional generator of some kind to transform the villain named the Coyote, forcing this expert smuggler to become an even more twisted version of the Spot, basically. Which, I'm going to be honest, the Coyote, that deserves more of a laugh than the Spot, in my opinion. But he looks a lot more intense than the Spot ever did, but I still like the Spot's design. But regardless of that, Daredevil finds out what sinister things this ring of criminals has done with the Coyote and Spot's powers. Using these portal collars, they have brought control and efficiency to the human moving market. I'm not sure if I can say the other thing on YouTube and not get some kind of issue, but you get what I mean. He's smuggling people. But these portal collars remove heads from bodies without detaching them. So this guy has a closet of heads of people who are all over the world. All of this is just terrifying when you think about it. This is all using the Spot's power and tech based on that power to do these things. And Spot is just being held up, imprisoned to produce the whole thing, to power the whole thing. And Spot at the end of all this gets turned into a human spider mothball looking thing, which doesn't really get explained or fixed explicitly later on. But again, just way deeper uses of his power to be a villain, to be a more effective, terrifying villain, and maybe even become a crime lord and not just some bank robber villain of the week. Our spotted friend also does a few deals with Mr. Negative, doing another double cross of sorts and getting Negative out of a jam with the Hood and his gang, in exchange for a cure or promise of a cure to his spotted condition. But he doesn't end up getting one or really even talking. He ends up crossing paths with the Winter Soldier, or Bucky Barnes, as he's in the process of helping RJ Boyle reclaim his life and sort of find a way through everything he was forced to become. As Bucky is on his way to check up on a client of sorts, an ex-SHIELD agent, double agent guy who Bucky got out of the spy life, he thinks he's being tailed and targeted, so he calls Bucky for help. So Bucky asks RJ if he wants to assist on this job, giving him a chance to do some good and see what he's able to do. Once they get there, RJ spots something odd by the tree line, and sure enough, it's a whole forest full of spots, with our favorite scientist trying to pull the whole snap your neck without you seeing him coming thing. But Seth, the guy that they're trying to protect, drops down when Barnes yells. Spot takes Bucky out back and beats the crap out of him, disconnecting his arm and about to finally take him out when RJ jumps into the spotted dimension, shooting everywhere as a distraction, and tosses Bucky a souped up Stark tech arm for him to then attach and knock Spot out with a bionic super punch. Now, I have no idea how they're able to just tie him up here with some kind of rope or something, and that just works for a guy covered in extra dimensional portals, but I guess that's what we're working with. If you haven't noticed the theme yet, it's that Spot could be so much, and yet it feels like he rarely gets any kind of dedicated writing to make him something more. So many comics have untapped potential, and Spot is one of the biggest almost could have been type of characters, which thankfully we got to see some more of that and expanding this character's role in the Across the Spider-Verse movie. What's ironic or not ironic is right before that movie came out, in the Carnage book, within the first couple of issues, Carnage is on a quest for power. After separating from Cletus Cassidy, he still loves to kill people and has that bloodlust and all that, but he's upset about the whole King in Black deal, for Eddie specifically. So he wants to be the thing that kills gods and super powerful beings. All that to say, he hunts down Dr. Jonathan Ohnn and Hydro Man and wants access to the spotted dimension, but he doesn't want a partnership deal or a rental agreement to rent access to the dimension. He wants to kill or tear apart the spot and absorb his powers and his access to that dimension. So after some pleading, chasing, and a very unfortunate playground-style grabbing of a leg by another serial killer and a cut-off hand, Carnage does exactly that and tears the Spot apart, absorbing his power and kinda killing him for like the 12th time. Now he's not technically dead. His torn apart head or whatever talks about how he has the spotted dimension still and he won't be dead. He can't be killed as he dissipates. But since then, Spot really hasn't gotten much love since. And I wouldn't call this love, almost disrespectful hate for Spot fans or anybody who's not a symbiote spider villain fan, which is like a whole different section of people, I understand. But point is, Spot cannot catch a break. Now, there is an exclusive digital comic that I believe that had like the PS4 Spider-Man and regular Spider-Man teaming up and they were chasing Spot, and then there was like a murder of the regular Spot as another one was doing something. I haven't gotten to read those or gotten access to those. But other than that, nothing's really been happening. And I really just want to drive home the point that I do think he has the potential to be far more cunning and deadly. Instead of it always being other people using his abilities or torturing him into a blob of something, like he just exists for the sake of his powers to be used by someone else, I think there's more. And again, Spider-Verse gave us a lot more of what he could be and what the writers can lean into in the future, and I hope they do. But I think there's even more depth that could be used in a different way. We've gotten tastes of it in all these small portions and in between the punchlines and larger character swapping stuff. And maybe he is best for Spider-Man stories, but I think he could be a villain that is built up to and isn't some D-list, Z-list Spider-Man Revenge Squad or Legion of Losers double-crosser. He's one of those villains that has shown us already over the years that they already develop and there's potential there to make him a really awesome villain with real depth. From his family life to how his lust for power and decision to work for Kingpin led to this power, and how this power quickly took over his life, presenting both a burden but also opportunity to really accomplish anything he wants. He already has the intellect, that's what led him to the experiment replicating Cloak's powers in the first place. All that's really been left for the characters just to actually map out what Dr. Ohnn, what Jonathan Ohnn wants out of life. I don't think that where the Spot ends is being used for other characters to spin off, like the Coyote or darker versions of him that still aren't him. I think there's room to take his character and the years he's existed and play with the gaps in backstory to really flesh him out to be something more. I can't imagine we've hit the epitome of the character with what little has been done here. There's no way it's just to have him bounce around Z-list team-ups or fill editorial gaps when he has the power to be anywhere, do anything, or take out anyone who could ever stop any goal he could set. He could move around so quickly and so seamlessly that he could destabilize countries, steal anything, and be the extra dimensional crime boss that Marvel could really use. Maybe he's more of that tragic villain who doesn't want to be a crime lord. He isn't hell-bent on power, he hits a limit and just wants to be normal, to be cured again. But so many things keep happening, bad days, and he has to deal with the strife of that on becoming normal. Almost a wrestling with the power itself. Or the portal dimensional stuff starts to wear on his body and his psyche cracks, and he just goes full tilt crazy portal demon style. All I'm saying is, don't let him become the penny guy from Batman. The penny plunderer, Joe Coyne I think his name is. As long as he doesn't become that, I'm happy. But yes, I will be doing a video on DC's spotted person, the polka dot man. Don't worry, that is still coming. If you made it here and enjoyed this, consider dropping a like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys later.